Hello, welcome. Thanks for picking up this little tutorial. My name is Ian and I'll be walking you through how I created this diorama. A quick note about myself, I was the art director for Gravity Falls a million years ago and I got to help design the Mystery Shack. So this project was done for the 10-year anniversary of the series, but it was also a personal project of mine that I made as an opportunity to learn some new tools and techniques, which I'll share with you here. Here's a preview of what we'll be covering. Starting with design in Blender, we'll block out the model and rough in the camera layout. Modeling will mostly be handled in VR using Gravity Sketch with further refinement back in Blender. Rough shading, lighting, animation, and layout lock will happen next, followed by some basic texturing in Substance Painter. From here, renders will be generated and we'll paint over all of them in Photoshop. Back in Blender, we'll project our paintings onto the mesh and further refine our scene by scattering cards, adjusting the shaders, lights, and adding effects. Finally, we'll make a variety of render passes for use in After Effects to composite and polish our diorama. Alright, for these two first sections, I will be quickly walking through some of what I was thinking and the decisions that needed to be made before moving on to modeling. This is all simple rough sketching and Blender use. We'll slow down for moments when the demonstrations are more complicated. Okay, lots to cover, jumping right into rough design. The creative was clear from the start. I wanted the Mystery Shack as a floating diorama in a textured, almost miniature illustrated style, with of course some visual nods to the original series background art style. The shack would be the focal point with a hint of something below the surface as opposed to only the shack on, like maybe a pedestal. And with all the pre-existing design, this step was primarily a question of composition and function. What to include, omit, what will animate, camera motion. How do I fit and balance this building shape plus the other elements into the frame? And right away it was clear with the top-heavy composition and the triangle-shaped shack that it needed to be counterbalanced by another opposing shape, with the portal being a natural fit. And this was great because it allowed for an opportunity to have a dynamic light source that could have some effects like glitching. And as long as triangles were the theme, adding Bill seemed like a no-brainer. That could be both an animated element and another dynamic light. Okay, so moving on to Blender, Block-It for the shack is pretty basic. The scene just needs enough camera and geometry layout roughed in so we have the necessary context once we're modeling in VR. Because it can be difficult to evaluate a 2D representation of our model when we're fully immersed in a 3D environment. Modeling here isn't anything special, you just need basic primitives and some light box modeling, so you have rough targets once you're in Gravity Sketch, the VR modeling app that we'll be using. So we're just looking to decide roughly how big is the object, where is it, what's its shape. Also, I like putting in some temp color, just to help me evaluate the scene. More context helps me out at any stage, so some preliminary thought into color temperature and value for my objects is helpful. Nothing final, but I like to think about more than one element simultaneously for a complicated project like this. It's a good idea to also roughen the camera right away. I settled on dimensions of 1600 by 2000 pixels with a 50mm lens. In this case, worked out to be the sweet spot. Shorter lenses were creating too much distortion, making it difficult to clearly show both the shack and the portal at the same time. Camera animation is also considered, but not locked, just to get a feel for how the model and its silhouette holds up from different angles, exploring the range of motion to help inform modeling decisions. Polishing the camera and its animation will come later, we just need to ballpark it before we get to modeling.